joining us shortly. Sophia Tirawo, you're welcome. Shogo, you're welcome. Ojewole, Precious Aderonke, you are welcome. Larry Apata, you're welcome. Fumini Akirinode, you're welcome. You are all welcome to this wonderful panel. Okay, so I think we have our second panelist is also here, and okay, so yeah, it's a good way to kick off because Rasak Malik is here and Kaltava is also here. Thank you, Chuna, for the prompt. So you all are welcome to another panel today of the Ibadan Book and Art Festival. It's a good thing that the festival is happening because this is a city that reminds us of so many things, a city of strong literary heritage. And our conversation today is titled The City as Muse. So we're looking at how urban spaces inspire creativity and then preserve cultural memory. And I think it's quite poetic because Ibadan says a lot. You know, almost every poet, every reader of African literature must have encountered J.P. Clark's poem Ibadan, where he talks about running splash of rust and gold, flung and scattered across among 7 hills like a broken china in the sun. So, you know, that image alone tells us that a city is never just about streets and buildings. It is about color, it's about reading memory, and of course, it's about a living metaphor. And you know, in Nigerian and African literature, cities have always carried stories in their bones. We'll talk about the Lagos of Cyprian Ekwensi and Chinua Achebe. We'll talk about the Lagos of Efe Paul Azino. We'll talk about the Lagos of Wole Soyinka. We'll talk about the Lagos of Ben Okri. And of course, Teju Cole. We'll talk about Nairobi. We'll talk about Johannesburg and so many other cities. You know, so each of these cities, you know, speak their own language. They carry whispers of nostalgia, you know, others shout in protest, some hold out memories gently. And poets keep returning, listening, writing about cities and how the cities become muse. So today we have a wonderful panel, and the 3 of them are going to be discussing how the city serves as muse. The first on my panel is Rasak Malik, who writes deeply with tenderness from a place of pain, sometimes from a place of loss and grief. He is a graduate of the University of Ibadan and is the author of The Other Names of Grief and No Home in This Land. Our next panelist is Kaltava, who I am meeting also today for the very first time. He's a poet, essayist, and his work is bold, experimental, and deeply observant of contemporary Nigerian literature, poetry, and life. He's the author of For Girl at Rubicon, and I've read that wonderful work. And of course, he's also the founding editor of Afapinen. And of course, the last but not the least, Chinua Achebe, you know, whose name carries a strong legacy of literature, but who has also forged a voice entirely of his own. He's the author of The Teenager Who Became My Mother, and his newest work, Naming, is almost here. You know, Chinua's poetry also pays deep attention to language, to memory, and of course, to other ideas of life that most cities tend to overlook. So, Malik, if you're here, I would like to start with you. I have a question for you. Can you hear me? Please signal that you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, well, of course, I am very conversant with your work. And I'm looking at how you carry place and city with you. You know, you often write about place with both intimacy and, of course, with distance. Now, I want to ask, you know, on the context or in the context of the topic we're looking at today, how does a city like Ibadan for instance, shape your sense of home? And how does that tension enter your poetry?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah. So I don't know. Not everybody knows this, but then I studied at the university. I mean, I spent like more than 10 years in Ibadan.
Okay.
I I did my BA and MA at the university. So I feel like more connected to Ibadan, the landscape, the places and everything. And for me, it means a lot to me. Like, I always return to Ibadan. I mean, Ibadan is my second home. Uh, and thinking about the impact or the influence of Ibadan on my literary life, uh, it's something that I would always return to in terms of how the history of literature, in Ibadan influenced or shaped how I think about my own poetry. Going to the university, attending the university, and also meeting all these older poets who studied at the university. I can think about Professor Emiraji, Professor Ademola Da Silva. Also getting to meet Professor Niyo Shundare at some point at the university. So for me, I feel these people, this poets who have contributed to the history of literature in Nigeria, uh, helped me to like think about how can I become a better poet? How can I think about these places and what they mean to me? Uh, and Agbowo is one of the most prominent places in Ibadan. So I also spent some time at Agbowo, and luckily for us in a way, because we have Agbowo Journal now, which
Yeah.
also started from the University of Ibadan, because we were just young poets who were thinking about what to contribute to the literary history of Ibadan. We just don't want to come to Ibadan and leave it that way. Like, we just want to do our own bit, and so for me, when I think about places or cities, I think about Ibadan first, because that is like my first contact to these literary great writers who have contributed immensely to the literary history. So I can always think about Ibadan. I can think about like Agbowo. I can think about Bodija and these places, and what. And then returning to what you mentioned, like J.B. Clark poem. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's an anthem. When you think about J.B. Clark's poem, The Seven He Is Now. It's an anthem that we all sing at some point. I mean, that we sing, and so thinking about this poem, thinking about other poets who came to Ibadan to write or to study,
Mm-hmm.
and looking back at all this, like all of this. So for me, as one of those who probably like were lucky like to attend the university and also to spend like years in Ibadan, uh, I can always return home like to Ibadan in my like in my poems. I mean, and for me, I think it's not only about capturing Ibadan in my poems, but also the memories that I carry with me. The
Mm-hmm.
memories of places that I carry with me to wherever I go, across the world, wherever I go, I always return home, So that home, that connection to Ibadan is something that I continue to cherish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malik. I don't want this panel to be so streamlined to maybe exhaust one person before. I want to just be taking turns on all of the panelists. So I'm definitely coming back to you with more questions. Now, I want to also ask Carl Tava. Carl, can you hear me? Hello, Carl, are you here? Okay, because we have limited time, I'm going to return to Carl shortly. Chinua, please indicate that you can hear me so that I can also take
Can
your
hear you.
Oh, yes, thank you. So now, Chinua, your poems often move between tenderness and observation. At least
Yes.
the one good thing about my panelists today are the fact that there are poets that I have encountered in many platforms. I've read almost everything most of you have put out in the public. So when you write about cities, about their noise, about the speed, about the contradiction of cities. How do you
Yes.
preserve intimacy in the middle of all the noise that is of a city? And what do you think pushes you into insisting that these cities must remember? I do not want to preempt your forthcoming collection, but I'm also sure that when you talk about naming, there is a strong emphasis on the processes of memory. So how do you preserve the intimacy of all these?
Yeah. So thank you so much for the wonderful question. And I think I will begin by talking about memory, and I will begin this by saying that memory plays a great role in a human formation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what makes you who you are, memory also plays a great role in it. Why this person is a nationalistic or is Nigerian, why this person is American, why this person is an English, is because of memories. If the one memory is wiped out, that person wouldn't know where they come from, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the point I'm making with this is that memory plays a crucial role in cities, in places, in everything about our lives. And that's why we replicate it in writing, no matter how we face it, no matter the angle we go with memory. We go in writing about cities and urban and it is urbanism in it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I always return to my friends, poems like Rasak, who writes um, uh, about memory, like cities, through the angle I would try to define as decay, a kind
Mm-hmm.
of decay,
Mm-hmm.
because it's also a preservation of that place, of that area. Then there are those people who write about cities through movement. They just go there, live, and another place to another place. Somebody like, I think that's what Romeo did with The Gathering of Bastards, you know.
Okay.
So we all have various aspects of it. And for me, I do this in true observation because I observe a lot. I like looking at things. And why this observation is very important is because the observations do have historical emblems, touches to it. And that was why I was kind of angry when street renaming in Nigeria became a thing, you know, due to ethnic bigotries and so on. Because what is being done in such areas where these streets areas are being renamed is that they are wiping away memories. What make that area what it is? Because when you rename a place, you are removing um, the histories, the incidences that gave rise or that gave birth to that particular naming. So
Mm-hmm.
I also pay attention to graffitis, the drawing on the buses, the bus stops, even the abandoned buildings in places. All these things make up my observations and in writing um, about cities. I've never been to Ibadan, but I would like to talk about um, cities through Oka, where I spent most of my life,
Okay.
you know. And in one of the things I've written, I have a kind of a line that says, I am looking into the beggars' faces to know who is actually a real beggar. You know,
Mm-hmm.
why that line? Why? Even after I wrote it, it keeps haunting me because sometimes we're in a place we don't know who we really are. I'm speaking in terms of Nigeria. We don't know who we really are. And I think we should know who we really are because that is the only point that we will understand our memories and find a way to move forward. In my own perspective, I think we are not moving forward. We are stagnant. The important thing is that we are here to understand who we really are. And memory plays important role in it. And one aspect of this memory I want to talk about is also history. Why did we remove it from our curriculum? Why? It is because they want us not to remember who we are. Where we can, because in naming in cities, the people there, it can be you can view city as from an individualistic individualism, where how people see it from their own view, and then collectively how a group of people see it or live in it. And then even in that grouping, it necessarily there will be subgroups. All these things shape cities, shape how we feel it. And cities play important role in my writing because it is a way I understand where I am living, how the people are reacting, and how the people are also alienated in that place. Because in a city, everybody might not feel at home, in it due to certain factors. And replicating these things in our writing is a form of also letting us understand that in our differences, we must find a standing point.
Okay.
We must find a standing point to help us explore ourselves, explore where we are standing, and explore the future, if possible. And city is also a true memory, is a means of survival.
Mm-hmm.
Writing it through memory, these are days, these are years that human beings have survived. Human beings have evolved from a particular issue to another, and it is important. It's also a form of resistance. Because
Okay.
people living in a particular place have resisted a lot of things. It might be the rule of that city. It might be um, anything about it. And one particular thing about memory is that people tend to forget, you know, the maybe the natural disasters, like the ecological issues of that particular
Yeah.
place. In where I come from, there is an issue with erosion. People
Yeah.
don't talk about it. Erosion, when I like a huge one, like in Igbo, it is called Mbuze, like huge, the huge one. Nobody talks about it, how it swallows houses. And once it's documented, people will know. And then there's a problem with our city planning.
Yeah.
That's also a different discussion as well. So for me, replicating these things in my writing is a way of telling us, I am aware, you should be aware as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Thank you so much, Chinua. Thank you for a very deep answer to the question. So I will also come back to you before we, move over to the audience. Carl, I'm speaking to you next. Can you hear me, Carl?
I can.
Oh, thank you, my brother. So now I've also read your work, and I can tell how much it pulses with restlessness of modern Nigeria. The street noise, the political banter, digital chatter. Now, how do you find poetry in all of these chaos? And how does the city energize or exhaust your imagination?
Okay. I thank everybody for coming on the panel. I think I became aware of cities in my adulthood, or as I went deeper into writing, and it's a shock to me. And even when people talk about cities now, I think I see it very differently because lately I have prepared to exploring the city as text itself in the way I write. My ongoing novel is about it's a flaneur novel where the narrator just talks about the city and so on and so forth. So and part of it is autobiographical. So I recall that doing these walks myself one of these days, the part of the city I went to, and it's a roundabout, and it occurred to me that I had passed that roundabout several times, but I had not actually stepped foot on it. So that day I stepped foot in it, and where it really happened to me, I was like, did we ever feel prepared for cities? In the sense that it is something we live in, especially we as Africans, for example, we don't know it, but the city is a little bit alien and strange.
Hmm.
It was like, did we ever get prepared for cities the way it came to, and so on and so forth? And how does this translate to how we might have some sense of, infantilism and so on and so forth? And blah, blah, blah. But let me go back to your question now. How do I the chaos of the city in writing my poems and so on and so forth? I don't know if you're referencing a particular poems or not, but city represents, like you said, it represents
You are breaking. You are breaking.
society.
Is there a way you can adjust a bit? You are breaking.
How about
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I think I can get you clearly now. Go ahead.
am I still breaking?
I can hear you now.
Am I still breaking?
No, no, no. I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, how do I cope with the chaos of the city writing my poems? For me, I think it's a wonderful concept for me. In the sense that I am now very conscious of how the city, shapes the way we live, shapes the way we think, and so on and so forth. So it's for me, it's like that, that canvas or that window with which I can sit and I observe and like, okay, my experience, I walk in the city, you wake up in the city, there's always that, interaction of what's going to happen next. Shapes, from one point to the next. So whenever I'm writing, I don't necessarily run away from chaos. I try to figure out how I can also be part of that chaos.
Nice.
So certain poems I read in the city. Yeah, there's a poem. In fact, there's a poem about it's a long poem. I don't know about a long left, and I found a way to talk about access and city, and I talking about how the city has now grown so fit since the lover is not here, and I can't walk it alone. So it's Muse, if you ask me. It's really a great Muse.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I love your response on how you try to manage chaos and the city and poetry. Just like I told other panelists, I will also come back to you with another question before we move over to the audience. So Malik, I am back to you. Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Coincidentally, you are taking some research on digital humanities, and I have read No Home in This Land countless times, and I can tell when the poet is more or less a digital troubadour. You talk about the violence in the north, and you are not always there to see this violence firsthand. However, we look at what I call digital cities, yeah, because much of today's urban life now exists online, from the WhatsApp status to Instagram skylines, viral grief, and Facebook posts about incidences like this. And I am sure these posts and digital how do I put it now? Digital streaming of all this violence, it also inspires you to put pen on paper, to capture the violence that is taking place in these cities we're talking about. Now, I want to know, how does digital cities influence how you write about the real ones?
Hey, I mean, this is a yeah, I don't want to call it a honest question because when I think about digital humanities, I'm thinking about mapping and but in my approach to writing poetry, especially about crisis or unrest, why I rely on information on the internet, I also think about what I do like underground, like meeting with people, discussing with them, and also everybody knows this. I was also like, for me, I think for the first time I was in Maiduguri, that was like 2 or 3 years ago, and some other people. I mean, I was also invited to Kano as well. But for me, the work I do engages more of like thinking about bearing witness now. Yeah, let me use that. Bearing witness to this violence, and how as a poet, how I can discuss or create something that captures the emotion, the grimness of this unrest. So while I look at online and what people are saying, I also need to confirm what is happening. Like, okay, fine, I don't rely on just what people are saying online, or how this amount of whatever. Like, I mean, because I think Hugh Mangu, there's this news website, Hugh Mangu, that does like a good job when it comes to capturing the violence and in some of it in Nigeria. So I also go to this and I see some of the things that they do with mapping the areas, the areas, so I can think about Hugh Mango and what they do. But for me, as an emerging scholar, I haven't really done like a lot of like mapping or I can talk about Atelewo, which is like different from say mapping, because what we do at Atelewo is only publishing literary work, but when it's like mapping the place, or attacked by these people, I think about interact people. I think about also going to these places too at some point, and then using my own creative imagination, how I can think about the grimness, but I'm also taking a course that has to do with mapping, and hopefully at the end of this semester, I can do something about that. But like I mentioned, when I think about my own work, I don't think about mapping or doing like the rework of mapping and trying to trace, but I go to some of these websites, and like I mentioned, Humango is one of the way that I visit to think about how they do their work and because they are credible, like what they capture on this website and the way they map these places. But yeah, I also have I believe there would be like a project that would also pushes me to push me to like think about how I can map, but it might not be even about poetry now. At some point, it might be something else, but that will involve mapping, like in my anyway.
Yeah, okay. So I've heard about Humango. I may not have followed them deeply, and I also enjoy when you talk about city and mapping. Perhaps by the time Humango becomes very viral among Nigerian writers, and of course other African and international writers, we may begin to look at how we measure the news and the events that take place in cities, and then begin to sift what is true and what is not, because we're also in the age of over sensationalism and the content creation, where sometimes the material you depend on in writing may turn out to be false, and it could be quite scandalous. It could be quite scandalous. Thank you so much, Malik. So Chinua, I want to also talk to you about hope and the future, because most times writers are speaking to the future, and they also elicit hope in their writing, because beyond the what I may call the glamour of grief, sometimes literary works are meant to carry hope and of course questions into the future. I was so traumatized last night. I listened to a song. I've forgotten the name of the artist, but I learned the song was done in 1977. And he specifically predicted what all of the things that are happening to us now, especially from both the political and the religious and technological bends. And he specifically mentioned 2025, and it was shocking to me. Such prophecies, such doom. Now, when you talk about hope, Chinua, I want to ask you as a poet, if your city could speak to you, what would it ask you to remember as a poet, especially how you convey hope to your readers?
Yeah, thank you so much about that question. I think writing through city, what it will always ask me to remember is the language. I
Mm.
always go for the language because people tend to forget cities are also built with language. It's not only about the buildings, not only about the bus stops, the graffiti, but the language. The because language is also part of is where you see the hope of the hope in the people. Language is where you're going to see the hustle in the people. Is only going to see their culture. Is only the language. You also see their resistance and everything. If we take the what's it called, the 2020 incidents, there are various terminology, languages used for it. It's through it that we are preserving that struggle, and also in language is where hope is. There is hope in it. There is hope in naming in using naming through language. It is there that you also find, just like taking it closer to the Igbo people. That's why you find, names of people, because through the issues they have encountered in a particular location, in a particular city, as well. So I would say at this point that it is language that does it for me the most, because because I am Igbo and speaking Igbo, you know, allows me that freedom, to see what technically I might not see at that point. And it allows me that freedom to own who I am. It allows me that freedom to walk into the future as who I am. Is language. And because we live in this moment in the world, English has become a kind of the language of the world, if people will ask me. So it is actually difficult, doing these things I have said, because I I don't write in Igbo, but I've written just a few poems in Igbo, just a few. I don't even think they're up to 10, you know. So in that regards, I would say that some of the things I would want to convey in Igbo language, and when I do it in English, it is a kind of affected. And the best way I do it, is to combine English language and Pidgin, because for me, Pidgin is relatively close to Igbo language because of how it blends and collects people indigenous languages into it. So
Yeah.
Pidgin now becomes that language for me. So I blend it. There are people who do it now, and I am happy that poets are learning that, doing it. There are poets who have done it in the past. You see, so many poets have done it in the past, and they did it very well. And I think that's what my father will, major things my father is known for, the pidgin poetry, But
Yeah.
now, for me, I try to blend it with actual English, with not actual, with English language, you know, to walk into that hope, to walk into the future that I myself at this point, I don't even know how it will look like. But the only thing I can do is to imagine it. And for someone to imagine it, they need to stay in the present for that imagination to come to life.
Yeah.
You see. So, this hope is a very delicate thing, because without hope in our writings, because we need to put it there. Without hope in our writings, why are we living? Why are we going to bed and waking up the next day thinking things will be all right? It is hope that makes us go to bed, tell ourselves that tomorrow is going to be great. It is
Yeah.
hope that makes us go to our desk and write, telling our fellow compatriots, Nigerians, artists, creatives, that tomorrow is going to be great. It's basically hope that does it, because
Yeah.
without hope, that's why we have people, harming themselves, people killing themselves, people doing things, to themselves, which actually saddens my heart. But on the other hand, I rely so much on hope. And in my writings, especially in the naming, I started um with calling, then chaos, issues, then at the end is hope, because that
Nice.
is where I know that that holds the human being, as who they are. And it's without hope, cities won't be built. That's even over the histories, people try to build places, hope, hoping that tomorrow it will be better for their children. People
Yeah.
do things hoping that tomorrow their children will live in that place and become happy. Fathers, parents, nationalists, they do these things, hoping that their kindred, their kinsmen, their kinswomen will be in a better place despite their current sacrifices. And that's why all of us, we're supposed to be doing that now, not trying to say, oh, what is going on doesn't affect me, and so I should be in my house. We need to act on that hope. Because hope without action is nothing.
Yeah.
Going to bed, hoping. Yeah, it's good to hope. But without action is nothing.
Yeah.
And some of us are doing it through music. Some of us are doing it through various mediums, and I'm glad I'm doing it through poetry. And most all of us are doing it through through poetry. And that's why the other day I was speaking with my friend Rasak, because I speak with him all the time, and he also talked to me about the hope in his current work that is coming out in December, The Origin of Wounds. I don't know if you know that the book is coming,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
origin of
yeah, yeah.
The Origin of
Yeah.
Wounds is his full collection coming out in December. We talked about it last night, hope, and we talked about the nuances, about the hope. So it's very important to us as human beings. And I don't know if Razak would want to speak on that hope relative to his
Yeah.
work, but
I,
for
I, wa- I
me,
was going to,
it is
I was going to tell you to allow me some time to also take up Malik on that. But
all right. Thank you so
yes,
much. I
yes.
will allow him to speak now.
Yes, Malik will speak briefly on hope as a round-off note, and you also give us a short round-off note. We'll take it in one or 2 minutes, because in another 5-10 minutes our panel should be over. But now I want to also get Carl to speak for the second time, and I've looked at Carl. Are you here? I've looked at how many poets write their works, and myself in some of my works. For instance, my newest collection, there was this editorial back and forth that I had with my editor, who was talking about some things about punctuations, and I remember replying in the email that sometimes what you may say is lack of punctuation in my work is because of the abruptness of the city. I'm trying to use it to reflect how I'm thinking about my cities and all. So it is deliberate to look at the chaos, the abruptness of the city in which I'm writing. So it is on that note that I'm asking Carl. Carl, can you signal that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so now on when you talk about poetic form, let's say, does the rhythm or structure of your poetry, in which we talk about long lines, fragment, performance cadences, and the rest of them, do they reflect the tempo of your city life? I'm looking at Jos, for instance.
Are you talking about my poems or poetry generally?
Yes, your poems. How does your poetic form also reflect the tempo of your city?
Okay, that makes sense, because every city, cities are dynamic, and my reading into all facets of city has taken me to aspects of where cities can also have sexualities. A city can be feminine, masculine, or whatever, kind of gender you can think about. And even also, you can think about cities as, let's say, animals too. Like, the city has the form of a snake or a cat, or something like that. So I'm using this to explain that poems too, when you write them in relation to the city, because the city, to you as a poet, if you're within a city and you're writing a poem, or you're creating art generally, the city is your witness, So, and it sneaks into your imagination, because after all, your imagination cannot happen in a vacuum. It's about space and time and all of that. So, like I was talking about cities having genders, or us relating it to can even relate to color, so on and so forth. So the same thing too can be applicable within the poetic form. And I think most poems, I'm talking about my poems now, that have been written of the city, they tend to assume a kind of, most of them, in fact, in recent times, most of them have become prose poems, and the poet, they tend to justify it and make it look like a block form or something like that. I don't know if any person has paid attention to this. But when people talk about cities, they often do that thing. And most of them carry a very narrational tone, which means you don't have strong strong endings. You just keep going on and on and on. So there are different topics that would arise when you could obey, that morning character. You will find the morning character in it, and I think that would influence how the structure of the form of the plan would look like. You might have things like scatteredness. I've seen this in several poems, and also it would be an imitation of that like that. So if you see a poem about night, for example, to have that, I think it depends on the mood that the is witnessing at the moment in which captures the poet he is writing. For me, it happens to me. I like to be a minimalist in poetry, but recently I've been drifting away from that. And any poem I write about the city tends to just be very long and a little less poetic. But then I give a sort of what they call it now, visual form. What I become, I think I did with that there. But I'll agree with that, but somehow I still do it because right now I think I have about 3 or 4 styles of rhetoric. I have the unrhymed couplets. I like seeing some point that in the middle of it, I break the lines anyhow. So it depends on what aspect of or character I'm embodying in the poem. If there is tension, you find the block. If there is warning, you find something like a string. So punctuation now is I think punctuation is for gods. Let me just put it like that. Who wants to insist on a kind of
Can you round up in another 30 seconds? Because they are signaling me.
Okay. So what happens about punctuations in the poetry is that punctuation helps because you may not be always there to tell the person that this is where a particular line or thought stops. But this is poetry, and it's a stream of consciousness, and it's allowed to just be put in as much as it can be, because it means to capture that tranquil moment or that tension. That's what the reader is going to take away from the end of the story.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. I love what you talked about, the long lines. Perhaps I will engage you privately on when you talk about the length of a poem and how it reflects the city. And now in this order, Malik, Chinua, and of course you, in one minute each, I need you to give me your closing remarks, and then we call it a day. Because our timing is already here. They have already signaled me for the next panel. So Malik, you may need to speak briefly on hope and any other thing generally you want to talk about this conversation we're having. And after you, Chinua, Cal, so we can wrap it up. Over to you, Malik.
Like Chief mentioned, I think hope is very important. It's pertinent to the kind of especially when we think about the chaos, but we still have hope to remain alive. Is it poem written by Daniel Shalaris? One of the people that I returned to. And it says, how likely will build hope as if to an animal run around and we create the way a mother would from one day to the next. So there's what in Islam that hope is embedded in this poem because the title of the poem is Inshallah, and in that poem, Dan Chalameris tries to capture the, we don't know what will happen tomorrow, but then we know that things will be fine, and so we can, if like we all check this and look at what is captured in terms of hope, in terms of how we believe that next year will be fine. The next year, so it is the hope that hope that is from one day to other. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chinua, over to you briefly.
Yeah, and I think in that regard, to write about hope, to write about, cities, I think is a way of documenting, is a way of resisting, forgetting, and it's a way to humanize, the anonymous, right? And sitting in all its contradictions, in everything, decay, freedom, confinement, it becomes a mirror of human complexities. I think hope is very important in our writings, and people should try to look on that side of life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Carl, over to you, please. Carl, are you here? Okay. In the absence of a response from Carl, I would say, okay, Carl is talking. Hello, Carl. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, your parting remarks, please. I think your line is breaking badly. Okay, so thank you, Carl. Yeah, to the organizers, we thank you for bringing us here. Someone is saying that we need to continue this conversation elsewhere, and I agree. Because of time, we may have to stop here, and it's unfortunate we didn't hear much from our audience. I would have loved to hear what so many others think, but this is a conversation I know that we will always return to. Thank you for allowing me to be your host this afternoon, and do enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sirs. Yeah, thank you very much, sirs. Special announcement to Mr. Obaka that suggested the Twitter space. Yes, duly acknowledged, and we'll put it into consideration, and hopefully in the coming months we will have, yes, thank you very much. We'll have that conversation again. And special thanks to Mr. Ifesinachi. Thank you very much. I just want to announce that after this session, we have 2 videos that we're going to be playing. Readings from Mr. Okowi Ocho and Karimot Olabisi Odebode. They are going to be reading reading poems just to ensure that it's not just about talking, and we can just have fun. And after that, the next panel session will be live. I've put the link. The link is also in the chat box if you can see. Yeah, it's there. The next panel session is The Ruins and the Promise, Post-Colonial Dreams and the Reality of Ordinary Lives, and we hope that you can join in. So after my voice, you will hear the videos coming now, so you can all enjoy, and thank you. See you after the videos. Thank you.
reading the first poem titled Absence. Ability. I dive into Lagos travel. My body lands in the palms of the body. This journey to the ground, the point my ancestors pressing in the distance of the sea. Those ancestors that come to me always find the body life tormented by their wandering. I have got their exile. Tonight, I am at a meeting. Caliber Testings. He speaks the horror of blood on the dead map of a farm. Every answer counted to remember the fact, that own magical cravings of my own soul. I hold the walls of my history, not horror from Sudan alone makes my Pan-Africanist spirit. The history of my ancestors has lent modern dancers that hope old chants. I'll be reading the second poem, which is quite short, titled My Dream. I am quarreling with my dream again. It draws my body in the metropolis and leaves my eye in the touch point where there are stones, wet libations of my ancestors. Okay, so I'll be reading the third poem titled Two Seraphs. Two seraphs stopped by the door of my room. They were tired from flying. Their throats were punctured by thirst because they flew through mapped channel of the middle passage, and the water, ruined by the grief of trauma, refused them to drink. They became immobile by the history of a color that looked like theirs. I offered the gift of my body. One sketched the xylophone on my stomach, and the other collected my arm and stretched it to a kakaki. My body, they became an orchestra of strange cryos, telling the history of their migration through poetry that found strength to songs that rose from the waters that sailed the slave ship. They were black seraphs, seeking the origin of their destiny. We are flying to find the tablets that carried their home. Said, after 40 years in the temple of heaven, the gods we sang to did not come bilingual. So we seek where God sings the color of our tongue. He found me through a tree, always open to strangers, who will put songs in my mouth, who will stuff my mouth with poetry, sing the joy and grief of my history, swallowed by the throat of slave ships, is a new words. So I become a griot too, and our voices of one. Okay, so I'll be reading the fourth poem, which is also the last one in this collection, titled There is a Sea and Let the Navigation of the Laughter. You sit inside my head. There is a sea that lends the navigation of the laughter. And every second, your absence creates a silence my water's depth cannot sink. How did you get here? As I ponder the chandeliers of nights and stars hovering around my 29 acres of sky, I seek you from the shores where your iron anchors hold. Yesterday, as I drank vodka, I did not write my history, the Atlantic swallow. It was a metaphor for water with you sailing towards the tenderness of my brain. I may no longer sing God into storms. I may no longer sing water. I sing the uncertainty of my heart. Two tongues stretched towards silence and melody. I am caught between the destiny of a broken Adam, wondering if he can love me and me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Parimon Olabode, and I'm the author of A Woman Has Many Names. It's a poetry collection. It's a whole lot of poems, like 106 poems. And today, I will be reading two poems from this collection. One is June 12th, and the second one is titled A Soldier Boy Gone. So I would read June 12th, talks literally to the June 12th, which talks about the fight for democracy, where we are as a country and what we are aspiring to be. June 12th. When my children ask me what democracy was, I would tell them it was school children finding solace under armed men. I would tell them it was mothers closing the eyes of their dead husbands, women removing bullets from the bodies of their sons. I would tell them it was young girls having their first orgasms at 10, not gentle, not sweet, but possible penetration. I would tell them it was baptism. I would tell them the stories of Anita, Binta, and other Chibok girls. I would tell them of crazy fanatics dying for 7 virgins. I would tell them of Baga, of schoolboys roasted in their dormitories at Daddy. I would tell them of Southern Kaduna. When my children ask me what democracy was, I would tell them it was politicians, and Bada and Babariga, casting Naira in Ghana Moscow. I would tell them it was a bunch of teenagers funding their bank accounts like house headed to the abattoir, while the people live with empty stomachs and their feet. When my children ask me what democracy was, I would tell them it was our president traveling overseas for medical treatment. I would tell them it was crazy demonstration of poverty, hopelessness, and university students losing hope and discounted rights. I would tell them democracy was them all crazy, that democracy was for staying our country. How could you be safe with no job? How could you be safe with empty stomachs and quadrupled families? How could you be safe when the only others were national orders? The ones done on Abiola, Babangana, and Gani. I would tell them democracy was fiction, one that lives in the pages of our government of the people, by the people, for the people. That for this democracy, nobody died. That there was no free education, no better health system. The majority of the people are just a sickness rate from soliciting funds on social media. There was freedom of expression, or freedom after expression was a luxury the majority could not afford. I would tell them that the ones who swore to protect our lives and property have sworn themselves as our enemies. The police brutality was enough. When my children ask what democracy, I will tell them the story of Kolade Johnson, Tina Nzikwe, Daddy Yata, Miriam Shobukola, Fatai Oladipo, Chima Ikunado, Tiami Yukase. I will tell them the stories of Binti Bala, Isu, Chibuike, and how their families keep clutching the heaviness of their absence. I would tell them to say their names. I would tell them of how human life became the harvest of herdsmen, that women were dancing and money was exchanged for life. When my children ask me what democracy was, I would tell them electricity was still a luxury and we rejoice all NEPA. The bad roads were the company of our people that we idolize butchers and corrupt leaders. We need monuments in their honor. That when a man called for revolution, spent so many nights in the comfort of the city, that democracy was another shackle the majority gave that things fell apart. The center in Abuja could not hold. Lawmakers fell off moving vehicles. Chairs were thrown, and the mails were stolen. When my children asked me what democracy was, I would tell them democracy died June 12, 1993, along Abeokuta and Kano Road. That the labor of our leaders past was buried alongside and in Yama. When my children asked me what democracy was. I would tell them democracy was them all praying and me at time. Oh yeah, so the second poem I'll be reading is found on page 95 of the book and is titled A Soldier for God. And this poem is very short verse and it basically talk about the sacrifice that our military men they do, and also the untold story of the people they called their loved ones, how their hearts break, in their absence, and now we should do more as a community, as a nation, to honor the life and the memories of the members of the armed forces. The soldier boy is gone. Yesterday was our love anniversary, but I am planting muted tree branches and sending tears to them. A warrior went by for a nation that will discard his body like trash. To be a soldier in this country is to serve. And you never would. What does it want other than its love for? Will your nation die in love? Soldier boy. Yes, thank you. That was super from Everyone Has Many Names, one that talks about injustice that is spiritual, and another one, the soldier boy is gone. Speaking from the perspective of the lover of a member of the armed force that died in service, and how we as a nation do not really care for the people, the loved ones. Yes, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed reading more fans of the character.
All right, thank you very much. Trust that we all enjoyed that piece. And also, we see that some people are already joining this one again, but want to announce that this session is officially over with that video. And the link for the next session, which is about to start now, is in the chat box. I will leave we'll leave a window of 2 minutes, 1 minute to 2 minutes for anyone that would like to check out the link to join. So Mr. Abubakar, I trust I can see the link now, sir. All right, so do let me know if you can see the link so that we can know that we are good to go, sir. So the next panel session will be starting now. In fact, it has already started. So the link is in the chat box again. Please click it and you will be directed to where the next panel session is starting now. I also see that some people are joining again, but want to all right, so I believe we are all good now. All right, so this session is now officially over. We'll see you in the next panel session where Mr. Suedi is already waiting for all of us. So thank you very much. See you on the other side.